Welcome to Belly Up to the Blackboard, a podcast focused on the reality of teaching and other musings from and about professionals, hosted by Chris Munn and Justin Russell.
What's up, everybody? It's been a while since we've recorded. Good news and bad news, Justin's back in town.
Yeah, depends on who you are and which way that goes.
That's very true. It is St. Patty's Day, so
Top of the morning.
While we get into it, all right, Justin brought what we're drinking today. What do we got?
We got some Yellow Spot, man. This is some high premium stuff. It is kind of hard to find right now.
Yeah, let's take a look at it. So it's Yellow Spot, single pot, still Irish whiskey, aged 12 years. Nice.
By Mitchell and Sons. It's imported, man. It's the real stuff.
Yeah, Dublin, product of Ireland. Well, we figured it's St. Patty's Day, and
You don't have any green on.
I don't.
Face.
I've got black. Wait, I got green camo hat.
That don't count.
Suck on that. Yeah, you don't have green on? Is that green?
Yeah. Oh, wait. You're colorblind. You wouldn't know if you had green on.
That's true. I need to put tags in my clothes to tell me what color they are.
Well, you know they're how to spell first.
Actually, I can't. Morgan needs to because I wouldn't know if it's green or not. So, yeah, we're back at it, and in person, Justin is here, back in town from his trip. So the last time we recorded were you here back for December?
That was December. No,
I don't think we did.
We didn't do it it was Thanksgiving, man.
Holy crap.
We did what we were thankful for. I was in I can't remember where I was.
Yeah, so we did that our last one was on the road. We've done them a couple on the road. I think.
Yeah, it was somewhere in Louisiana, I believe.
Yeah, so then
it was from a road.
All right, so from Louisiana you came up. So let's wrap up your trip. So from Louisiana,
then we went back to Des Moines.
To the end of the finish line.
Yeah, then we went back to Des Moines. After the first of the year, 23, we headed straight back down south, went through Nashville, down through Georgia, or through Alabama, then Georgia, and then spent about 2 weeks over near Orlando, and then circled back through. We made it to North Carolina, went back through Nashville. Had to cut our trip short. We bought some land out here in Iowa, and then I'm transitioning to a new job right now, which will be good, and start some training here in about 2 weeks. And then my wife, Kim, she is going to continue the accountant job and go from there. So our plan is shortened by about 3 months. I mean, what do you do? Life happens.
But it works out. I mean, like, you're where you need to be, right?
Yeah.
Like you said.
And we hit almost everywhere. I mean, the plan was actually to go from North Carolina strip to Eastern Coast, wrap around to Niagara Falls, and then chop back down through Chicago and come home. But, God has different plans. What do you do? I mean,
I was going to say, God's got a plan.
Yeah.
What's the saying? Tell God your plans, and watch him laugh.
And then watch him laugh, yeah.
Something like that.
Something close. Trying to be philosophical here, aren't you?
Yeah, trying to. That's okay. I'm not. So anyway, we're back in person. So these will be more, what do you say, more consistent.
Yeah, stable.
So, yeah, more stable. So I know there's been some ups and downs of recording and not recording, and, not that we're here for the fame and the fortune, but it makes it hard
just like teaching
to grow views or whatever. And we did talk about trying to get this to do where we can do it on a video.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, maybe add it TikTok or whatever. I don't know if that's a good idea, or put it on YouTube. So
yeah,
we're trying to figure that out too. So eventually we'll have this on video, I think.
Yeah, because honestly, it's just like a lot of hobbies we do. We just do it for the fun of it.
Yeah, exactly. So and then get out of control and
occasionally.
Till our wives tell us we need to just rein it in just a hair.
Get real jobs.
So yeah. So with St. Patty's Day, we like to talk about fictional things like leprechauns, right? And
what, four-leaf clovers? Are those real?
They're real, but I still haven't found a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow.
I've never seen one that's real, yeah.
But so we're going to talk about fictional things here. So we have a list that we're going to talk about, and it's our top 5 fictional characters. And as always, I have a list and Justin doesn't, because I do the work and he's just the face of the radio.
Yeah, but I'm still waiting for those, like I said, blue M&Ms only in my dressing room. I don't get those yet.
He's got a writer in his contract for specific things for him to show up. So about that. So we're going to talk about our top 5 fictional teachers. We do have some honorable mentions, so technically it's really going to be about 9. And then from there, we're going to talk about which one did we relate with, or which one did we think we were going to be when we started teaching?
Yeah.
And where do we fall now?
So our rookie years of teaching, we imagined this was the mold that we were going to fall into, and kind of where we've, I don't want to say relegated to. I think the right word would be evolved to, don't you?
Yeah, I like that. Not relegated. That sounds bad. We've evolved into, whether it's evolved or devolved, I guess. We'll see what we pick. But so these are like in no particular order. Some are newer. Some you might know. Some you may not know. But number 5. So do you want to read number 5 since you don't have any? You can start with this.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yep.
Number 5 is Andy Campbell in Strickland. So that'd be Charlie Day and Ice Cube in Fist Fight. This one to me is hilarious that it made the list.
It's a good movie.
I mean, it's fairly recent, right? I would say that movie was probably maybe 6 or 7 years at the most.
Yeah, probably something like that. Yeah. So Charlie Day, obviously, if you don't know, he's from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And then obviously Ice Cube is Ice Cube. But if you have not seen this movie and you are a teacher, you gotta even if you're not a teacher, you need to watch this movie. It's pretty good. It's there is some hilarity in that one. So those are just the relationship between Charlie Day and Ice Cube in the movie. They do really well. And then one of the funny things I think with Ice Cube is the scene where he's got he rolls in the TV to watch a movie or whatever, and somebody has downloaded the remote app.
The remote app, yeah.
And they keep shutting the TV off or whatever, and I think he ends up taking an axe through the desk. But
but those two play the quintessential teachers, right? Like the not necessarily good and evil ones, but they play the teacher. Like Charlie Day is the student teacher, right? Like we always hear this verbiage called the player's coach, the one that's likable, the one that wants to do everything that pleases the kids, and it's just a cool teacher, and has kind of that teaching style too when you watch him do a little bit of teaching.
Yeah.
And then Ice Cube is that the one that we always think of as that not necessarily burnt out teacher, but the one who says, look, we're going to have some discipline, we're going to have some structure, and you're going to watch this.
Old school
oh,
teacher.
Absolutely. And it's just funny to see how they respond when that student is using the remote app and then turning the TV on and off.
Yeah. Charlie Day is, I think, he's more the new school.
Yes.
Kind of by the book.
Yep.
He's trying to friend all the kids, whereas Ice Cube is like you said, old school teacher. This is how we do it. You need to fall in line. And then they cross paths.
But the irony about that scene too is that Ice Cube is trying to be quote unquote hip, right, or cool in that scene, right? Like I've got a TV with a video.
Yep.
Like, normally I lecture for 45 minutes and then we have a quiz.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to do something fun in his mind, and the student thinks it's more fun to jack with him, right? So.
Yeah, and then he loses his shit, and so it's pretty good. I will say there is a scene in the movie that is, it's with Charlie Day and then his daughter in the movie when she's at a talent show, and I'm not gonna say anything else, but you need to watch it. It's called Fist Fight. Yep. I think it was gonna be called Teacher Fight originally.
I think so. That was original
but
name, as we looked at it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching it.
So that was number 5 on a list that Chris found of top fictional teachers. There was a poll or survey or something like that. But
now I'm trying to see how I can keep this up. So we've got it projected on the TV, and I'm trying to figure out how it doesn't go to sleep. But
so you're the old school teacher who doesn't know technology.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not iPhones. I don't know. Flip phones are where it's at.
Oh my gosh. Number 4. This one's a fun one.
Okay. Yeah. Number 4. We grew up with her, and she's back. It's Miss Frizzle.
Oh my gosh.
From Magic School Bus.
Generations, don't it?
Oh my gosh. I know a few years ago she came back, so I don't know if I forced my kids to watch it or we just sat and watched it, but I don't know if I enjoyed it more than they did. But Miss Frizzle was always cool when we were growing up, whether it was, I don't know if it was on PBS. Mm-hmm. I can't remember when the actual show was, whether it was Saturday morning or it was after school. Or,
well, obviously it was a book way before.
Was it?
Yeah, it was a book way before it was a video series.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Maybe I had that wrong. I just remember, what's his name? From Star Trek?
That was Reading Rainbow.
Reading Rainbow, but he used to have Magic School Bus as part of the show.
Was that part of it?
I think
and
it was, yeah.
Just branched out on its own? Oh.
And then he would start reading, I thought, and then it would just go right into the animation.
Maybe it was. I don't know.
I don't know.
But
I know I wasn't drinking at 9, so I'm pretty sure I'm not making this up.
So I'm going to go ahead and digress here. And when we're talking about PBS, sorry.
They're not funding us, by the way.
They're not funding us. But, hey, it's free TV, and there's some good stuff there. Do you remember the show Square One?
Oh my gosh, yes.
When we were students, there'd be days where we'd go ahead and the teacher would bring in the TV.
Yep, roll it in.
And we would watch Square One.
Yeah, there wasn't any
PBS.
Apple TV or screens or any of that junk. It was
it was PBS.
It was a massive TV. They just rolled it in.
On the cart.
On the cart.
And there was a couple, oh man, my favorite thing on there was the they were detectives. They were math detectives.
Yeah, you're right.
I loved that show.
Yeah.
But
I just remember the newscast always.
And
it just it was just weird. I remember just seeing students up there doing the news, and it just almost seemed a repeat of what was actually going on. But
yeah. So a few years ago, it's probably been 5 now. We watched it. We were in the 3rd or 4th grade, maybe, I think. So I actually found it on YouTube, and it was the math one. I can't remember what it was called, but they were the math detectives. Maybe that's what it's called. And I tried to play it in a math class, just one day in math class with this group.
Trying to be a hip teacher.
Trying to be hip and cool, and hey, I liked this. And they did not.
They probably didn't even know what it was.
They didn't, and it was not HD, and it was... I got a kick out of it. I might even actually have to find that again. But
yeah, we may have to look at it.
Yeah, Miss Frizzle. I mean, she'd always shrink or whatever you would do and go wherever. I always thought that was a cool show, and I think you learned a lot.
What's funny about that teacher is there never seemed to be any student-to-student conflict in that show.
Yeah, and a lot of times that's usually what you're solving, right?
Or
it was strictly learning.
Yeah, or not even kids pushing back on anything she wanted. There was no complaining ever.
Well, it was a cartoon.
Or there was never a bus really breaking down. You'd have to transition buses to the next one.
Or was there? And we just don't remember.
I don't know.
Did the Magic School Bus ever break down? I'd love to know.
That's a great question.
Like when they're in the body, or I know there's one they were in space, but I don't know if it broke down.
I don't know. The space one was always a cool one to me. Yeah.
All right, number 3 of top fictional teachers.
Yeah, it's Mr. Feeney. Oh my gosh. Anybody who has not grown up in this era is missing out. Mr. Feeney was the quintessential teacher.
Yeah.
Right?
Boy Meets World. If you never watched it, if you're our age, you had to have watched it. I can't imagine, unless you grew up Amish, which is cool too. But if you had a TV, it was Boy Meets World, Mr. Feeney. And I think in the new ones, he's also in there. He's retired, but he's
retired, but yeah, he makes guest appearances. But who was the long-haired teacher? The one that adopted Sean.
Yeah, I saw something.
He was just as cool.
He was.
We're going to have to look that up.
Yeah, I don't know. He was good too.
Yeah, if we were a real podcast, we could be hey, so-and-so, look that up while we're talking about this.
I can try to look it up while we're talking about this. But
I'll talk about Mr. Feeney. Mr. Feeney was you know what, I don't know who can trace their motivation to be a teacher back to Mr. Feeney, but you think about some of those epic student-to-teacher conversations he had. They were just phenomenal, right? You know what I mean? Everyone can trace, if you're a coach, you can trace back the moment the coach who inspired you to be a coach. Most teachers can do the same thing with a teacher. But Mr. Feeney, man, I can't believe he's number 3. That must be a generational thing.
There was no specific order of these. Yeah, I'm not ranking these.
I thought this was a list you found.
No. I found some guys.
This is an unofficial list. We should have cited our sources. I'm sorry.
No, he's Mr. Turner.
Mr. Turner, yes.
Was it? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's some great scenes with Mr. Turner. Like you said, adopting Sean. Then you remember that he gets into the car wreck.
Yep.
And then this is when Sean is part of a cult pretty much and
running to get him.
Yep. And then he's in there talking to him, and Sean's not a big believer in God, but he prays to God that Mr. Turner will be all right. Yep. And then
You talk about who to model as a teacher. You talk about who to model yourself after for relationship wise. But it's just it was a good, wholesome show. I mean, everybody in that show was about mentoring and teaching, and it was a good show.
And I think there were we talked about Magic School Bus, and you didn't see like conflict or anything like that. This, it felt like you would see conflict that was relatable. That was real world, and it was a very good show.
What's going on with your phone, man?
It doesn't die, but it's going back to it locks out. I don't know how to change that to where it doesn't.
I don't have an Apple.
Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Come on, Apple phones.
I don't have Apple.
So I'm trying to figure it out.
Maybe
but
somebody comment on our website or page.
We don't have a website. We do have a. We have an email.
What kind of hotel is this?
Well, now that you're back, maybe you can do some work.
Oh my gosh.
We do have an Instagram they could comment on, and we'll put our most recent picture up on there.
I should probably get Instagram.
Yeah, and then we have an email address, bellyuptotheblackboardpodcast@gmail.com, or bellyuptotheblackboardpodcast is our Instagram name. So follow us. So
good segue.
We'll post a picture from today's episode, and like I said, we're going to try to do some video. We'll figure out how it is. It'll probably be rough at first, but we'll get it figured out. I think maybe we'll put some on TikTok, but then will kids see?
I don't know, because if they ban TikTok, will it necessarily be TikTok?
And then
nobody will know who we are
it's
then.
Belly up to the backboard, and we're drinking Yellow Spot right now. Okay, so number two is probably the most recent.
Yeah.
Is his name's Mr. Duncan, Jerry Duncan, but you know him as Mr. D. If you're on TikTok, you probably see a lot of the maybe clips from it. He does have a show. I actually just finished the series on Amazon. 20-minute episodes, 8 seasons. I crushed it in a few weeks just because one after the other. Yeah, so yeah, he's a terrible teacher.
Oh, he is horrible. My favorite kind of sequence right now is when the actress is his daughter, and she plays the temporary principal for a day.
That's his daughter. What?
That's his daughter.
Is it really?
Yeah, that's his daughter.
Her name is Amanda something Susan.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Amanda something in the show, right?
Because her nickname is Ass.
Yes.
Her friends call her Ass.
But in real life,
Amanda
that's his daughter.
Susan?
Yeah, if you look at
that's his daughter.
Yeah,
really?
if you look it up, and that's why she seems to be like the worst to him. Is because as in real life, I'm sure she's a sweet kid, but the principal for the day is hilarious because she goes to fire him, right?
Yeah.
And then the whole like multi-series or multi-episodes is him trying to keep his job from the principal for the day who has no power, and the real principal is like backing her up the entire time.
Yeah, and he doesn't know if it's real. No. He's like, he doesn't know what to do.
No.
Yeah.
And the administrative assistant is like, well, I'll get you a box to pack up. And he goes, she has no real power. And she goes, well, it looks like to me you were just fired.
Yeah, so then what does he do? Does he apply? What does he do? Does he apply somewhere else?
Yeah.
I just saw it, but so he's applying, and then he lets him know that he quit, and he's like, and that's the assistant principal that was playing along with. He's like, what are you talking about? It was a joke. She can't fire you. And he's like, he doesn't know how to react to it. And then there's
because it starts with him going, hey, I need to leave in the last period of the day, my planning period, for a personal reason. And she's like, well, you can't leave. I mean, you're supposed to be here. We pay you for contract time. Just like everybody's worst nightmare as a teacher, you have that administrator who is not flexible in any of that. And so it's just kind of a funny.
Yeah, she does a great job on that.
She does wonderful.
And then one of my favorite ones is when he's talking to his buddy about, they call it marking, because they're Canadian, but grading. And he's showing him like it's essays, and he's not really actually. And this has popped up on TikTok a couple times, and it's like he finds the smartest kid, and that's the kid who is the
key.
Basically, the key, right?
Yeah.
So he scores her like a 90 or something like that, and then what he does there, he's like, he says, well, writes on there like expected more or something like that, or. And then he's like, she'll come in and we'll argue about it a little bit, and like then we'll mark her, put her grade up, and then he's got the kid that is he's like a 60% student, right? He's got a grade of 60 throughout the year, and then he gives him an 80. He's like, great job. I've been expecting this. Da, 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 da. And like just it's classic.
Yeah, he's a horrible teacher, but you know, as fictional teachers go, I think he's probably one of the favorites just because most teachers can relate in some way to the justification of why he does things he does, right? Like,
yeah, and if it's not him, they can relate to somebody else on the show.
On the show.
Yeah.
Whether it's the student or whether it's another teacher or colleague,
100%. Yeah. So Mr. D or Jerry Duncan is we had him number 2. Again, not a ranking.
No. And full disclosure, we are not like approving or encouraging any of these like shows or behaviors. These are just things that came to mind as we were coming up with names for fictional.
All right, number 1. Now this is an older one. Now this one I really liked. So it's Jaime or Jamie. I'm pretty sure it's Jaime Escalante. It's Edward James Olmos, and the movie is Stand and Deliver. This is an old movie. It's when he is the math teacher, and he's in an inner city school, and he is trying to get these kids, one, to focus, to care about school and what they're doing, and then he ends up doing. It's a 1988 film, so geez, I was 6 when this came out, but obviously you watch it over and over again, sometimes, and it is actually based on a true story of a high school math teacher, Jaime Escalante. So it's a true story.
So it can't be fictional.
He is fictional. He's not the real teacher.
He's based on a real teacher, though.
But he's not the real teacher.
Oh, okay. Well, you just said the real teacher's name is Jaime.
Yeah, but the guy's an actor.
No, I'll go ahead. But you're right.
Let me be honest. I just looked it up.
Okay.
I thought it was fictional.
Thank goodness for Google.
So anyway, yeah. So,
but one that comes to mind as you were saying that, like an '80s movie, would be Morgan Freeman's movie.
What was that one?
But isn't that based off a real could
have been
real principle?
Maybe
too?
That doesn't count either.
No, I'm pretty sure it was. But but I was just gonna say both movies, Stand and Deliver, and the one that Chris is looking up now,
Lean on Me.
Yeah, Lean on Me. Like you think about, and we're gonna come to this segment in a little bit, but you think about those teachers that inspired other people to be teachers. When we talk about role models as fictional teachers, like
it is a true story.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
All those really good ones are. What's the other one?
Freedom Riders is another one, but I'm just saying, like, you talk about today's generation. We've talked many times, you and I, Chris, about lack of not only parenting figures but strong male figures that. Yes, there was a fine line sometimes that they may have crossed, but they did it with the justification of this is what's best for the students.
Yeah.
And their righteousness, yes, did have hubris to it at times, but at the same token, they were doing things with the idea that they were going to make their community better. And I think that's what teachers who are role models are. They're there to make their community better. And we talked about the last 5 teachers and stuff like that. You can go down the list, and even though, like, Mr. D, we were jokingly saying he's a horrible teacher, but you think about what that premise of that show is. It's based upon what are the worst parts of teaching or the worst things in teaching.
Yeah, and they just put it into one character.
In a comedy.
Pretty much.
In a comedy skit,
comedy.
right?
Yeah.
And the idea is to bring light to those issues. And so I can't take enough away from those fictional teachers about how, and again, we'll come to that segment. Maybe this is a good segue here in a couple minutes, but of where we thought we would be those first 1 or 2 years, right, of teaching. And then after 15, 16, 20 years of teaching, where we see we are now.
Yeah.
And I think we do need to go through the honorable mentions because they are great honorable mentions. And I may have to argue with you on some of those about being actually in the top 5, but
yeah, they could definitely shuffle. So, so Jaime Escalante, it's a great movie. If you've never seen Stand and Deliver,
yes.
If you're younger, you need to watch. It's just a great movie. And
last couple hours of spring break right now, go watch them.
Yeah, if you're like, God, I don't want to go back to school on Monday. God, it's just spring break. Watch Stand and Deliver, and it'll at least motivate you for a day and a half or a half a day, one of the two. But it's a great movie. It's 1980s. There's another one called Summer School, I think is what it is.
Yep.
And it's got the guy from, is it CSI?
Yeah.
No, not CSI. Is
No, it is Seaside.
Is it?
I think so. Look it up. You got the computer.
I do have the computer.
That's a good one, too.
Why don't you talk about
How about
honorable
School of
mention?
Rock? School of Rock can't be a good one, is it? Jack Black's character?
I did not put him in there.
Nah, I don't think so. Hey, honorable mentions. We'll do the first one. So we have Sean McGuire, which, for those of you who have seen Good Will Hunting, would know that's Robin Williams.
Mark Harmon. That's the guy.
Mark Harmon in Summer School.
Yeah, we're bouncing around.
He's got 2 of them. I thought there was 2 summer schools.
No, it's Mark Harmon.
Well, at least
He's in NCIS.
At
not
least you didn't
ACSI.
come up with Behringer for substitute.
Oh, that's a good. That one is if you're at the end of your rope. Or the other movie I was going to watch was with Michael Douglas, but it's not a teacher movie.
No, Falling Down?
Yeah.
No, that's not a teacher movie. No teacher take your cues from that movie.
If you're struggling, do not watch
No.
Falling Down.
No, Falling Down, no.
Yeah. Anyway, you'll go down a dark path.
Yes.
So honorable mentions. Yeah, Sean McGuire, Robin Williams, and Good Will Hunting. So technically, would you call him a teacher? He's actually.
I would call him a mentor.
Yeah.
Which
he's more of a counselor.
You could say is a teacher. I mean,
he's
in essence,
teaching things,
yes,
right?
But a mentor. Yeah. And I think that was probably what we were thinking when the list was created.
You didn't think anything. You didn't do any of this.
I brought this up.
You did not bring him up. No, yeah. So great. He's a mentor, and hopefully you guys have watched Good Will Hunting. But it's such a great movie.
Yeah, but so in thinking of why he's an honorable, so what makes him a great teacher? What, like, one thing, if you could say this is the closing argument on why he's a good teacher, like.
So Matt Damon's the other character, and he's Will Hunting, right? He doesn't let Matt Damon get away with any type of excuse.
Yeah.
He calls him on the carpet for, he's going through this counseling with him. And Robin Williams has gone through so much in his life, and they'll eventually get to it. But he doesn't allow Matt Damon's character to get away with any excuse of why he is the way he is.
Yeah.
And he pinpoints exactly what he's thinking, and it's just a great movie all around. Yeah. And that is based on a true story? No. No, it was written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Ben Affleck.
So that's how they got into Hollywood. That's not a true story.
I'll agree with you, though. Like, I think it is the pinnacle of accountability from a teacher of any kind.
Oh, yeah.
And the idea that you acknowledge it, because he does. He acknowledges that Will Hunting has had trauma and has had a rough go at things. But yet he also points out, look, you're not the only one who, has trauma and has had pokes in the eyes and punches in the nuts, right? Like, we've all been there.
Yep.
And there's no quantifiable way to say your experience is worse than mine.
Yeah.
And so through that connection, and I like it because Robin Williams' character is honest and he is open. Like, he doesn't make up that he has trauma. Like, he literally pours out his trauma.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think one of the most powerful scenes is when they're talking about Will Hunting's abuse. And he talks about how his dad used to lay like a belt, a wrench, something else out like on the table, and he had to pick what he was beaten with, basically. Right. And, Robin Williams' character's like, well, I got to go with the belt.
Right.
And he's like, no. He's like, the wrench. It was a wrench, I think. Maybe.
Yeah, the hardest thing, yeah.
And he's like, why? He's like, well, because fuck him. That's basically the reasoning. So it's a great movie if you haven't seen it. So Sean McGuire, honorable mention. Probably put him in honorable mention because he's more of a counselor or mentor, not a teacher technically.
Not a quote-unquote traditional teacher.
The second honorable mention, and the only reason why I think I threw her in here was because this is one of my favorite shows, and it's Lily Aldrin from How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah.
So she's an elementary school teacher, and every now and then when she talks about her job, they'll like show it and how crazy it is being an elementary school teacher, and I can only imagine because thank God I don't teach elementary because as much as we say we're saints for teaching, they're like times two at least for teaching elementary school kids. It's just crazy. I don't have a lot to say about her. I don't know about you.
Lily Aldrin, I think, is great as an honorable mention just for the fact if you watch the show, her evolution as a teacher. You talk about when she talks about her job at the very beginning in like those first couple of seasons, she's all rainbows and sunshine.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to change the world. These kids are like blank slates, and I'm just going to take them from where they are, and they're going to run the world. And then you watch that like season 6, 7, 8, and not that she's become battle hardened, but you can tell her way of doing things as an educator is more refined now. It's not so broad-based as everything is going to be okay. It is, okay, the kids are honestly this way. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Yeah.
And then, but I have plans, tools, and administrator support to make those changes. And it's just funny, that progression, because I relate to that, and I think a lot of teachers do, is we come into the profession like Lily did, and the same way, and then we evolve, right?
Yep,
And
absolutely. I mean, everybody does. As you're going through teaching, you're going to evolve as a first-year teacher to, where we're at with 15, 16 years.
Yeah.
Things change, your mindset changes, and, maybe you have a better way of doing things or a quicker way of doing things. And so like you said, that's a great progression from Lily Aldrin. I'm going to go ahead and an honorable mention of honorable mentions is Ted Mosby, because technically he was a professor of architecture.
He technically was a fictional one.
So we won't get deep into him.
I love when he takes on Barney as a student. Again, we digress in the show, but Barney is a student, and every like 5 seconds, Barney goes, Can we go outside? Can we have class outside? And I'm like, I know that kid.
Yeah.
I know that student.
ADHD for sure.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a great one. Number 2, another older one, and Veronica Vaughn. If you don't know the name,
Veronica Vaughn.
she's from Billy Madison. So she is one of the teachers that Billy had. If you remember the premise of the movie, he had to go back and finish his degree, but he had to start all the way back from kindergarten because his dad paid the school for him to advance. And Veronica Vaughn was maybe 3rd grade teacher.
She's like 3rd or 4th, something like that.
Yeah, so she's a good-looking teacher, and she was a good teacher for him, I guess.
That's not why she's on the list.
She's a great teacher.
I liked her, and I think she's a great teacher because she is the example of the ability to pinpoint what students you can joke with, what students you can be difficult with, right? And what students you have to be really soft with. And,
Be careful here.
Yeah. And I chose my words carefully. But I think as a teacher, we don't know that at the very beginning, right? That is a skill that's difficult to gain. And I think you have to teach for many, many years, right? Is knowing what students you can push.
And she does. She pushes. Yeah. I mean, she holds him accountable. And obviously, if you've ever seen Billy Madison, he's an adult. She's an adult. They end up being his girlfriend or whatever. But, like, I think she dunks it, like, damn near drowns him because he decides to quit at some point. And she holds him accountable. But Veronica Vaughn, she's on the list.
And he was making fun of a kid because he couldn't do cursive. And so she challenges him to do.
I saw that shirt the other day. I wanted to buy it. Phil Rarudo. Yes. So she calls him out.
Yeah.
So
that was a
good
one.
on her.
The next one, and I again, we're showing our age here by teachers, but Mr. Miyagi, man, you gotta love the Karate Kid and his teaching method.
Correct. I would call him a teacher for sure.
I would say he was one of the first project-based teachers.
Oh, nice.
Honestly, you think about the real-world experience he used to teach Daniel's son how to
paint the fence,
do karate, and sand the deck.
Sand the deck. Mr. Miyagi is an all-time top teacher. He could probably be on that top list. Okay, so yeah, Mr. Miyagi was great. And he held him accountable. He also didn't allow other adults to bully kids. I mean, you remember that scene at the very end of Karate Kid 1 where it's the teacher from Cobra Kai is pushing around his kid and breaking his trophy because he got second to Daniel's son. Right? Daniel, what's his last name?
What is his last name?
Daniel LaRusso.
LaRusso is Italian.
He is Italian.
Yeah. How did you not know that?
I don't know.
You guys all know each other, don't you?
I did. I said it. I just forgot. So then like he stops him from obviously bullying the kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mr. Miyagi, he could have been on a top 5, but I put him on the honorable mentions list just for the fact that he wasn't a quote unquote teacher in a classroom, but he's still a great teacher.
Well, and the other one we might have missed up there, Robin Williams reminds me of
Dead Poet Society?
Dead Poet Society, yes.
Yeah, I was going to put that on there, but I had watched it once and I don't remember.
I honestly think this list is probably arbitrary, just in the sense of, I mean, we all kind of think to ourselves what a good teacher is and what a bad one isn't.
Yeah.
Or is. And I'm sure those characteristics could be interchangeable for many people. But no, this is a good list. I like it. I like the honorable mentions. I like the idea that there's a lot of portrayals of quote unquote good teachers. And
Yep. Well, that's why it's the top, not the bottom.
well, our top.
Our top, yeah.
Your top.
Yeah. Oh, my top. Okay,
Your
so
top.
is there anybody other than Robin Williams in Dead Poet Society? Is there anybody else that you see that we should have on there?
No. I mean, if I were to think outside the box and just say a teacher is anybody who I would consider a mentor,
Yeah.
I think that broadens our list. But no, I think that's a great list. I mean, I think, again, there's so many people, fictional-wise, growing up, shows. I mean, think about it. We used to, in our generation, we had TGIF. Remember that? And for those of you who are too young to remember that, it was the Friday night lineup.
Yep.
And there was like 4 main shows. And
Yeah.
Carl Winslow, I could consider a teacher.
He taught, yeah,
Right?
Yep, from Family Matters.
Even Al Bundy at some point, I could say
He taught some
some people. Taught me not to be right. Like
from Roseanne, the dad, Dan. He he kind of mentored the boyfriends or whatever of his 2 daughters. I could see that. I had thought about Saved by the Bell, but I couldn't think of a teacher other than
well, the principal.
Mr. Belding.
Mr. Belding for the most part. But then there again, he was always kind of this bumbling, stumbling administrator who was trying to be friends with
A bad teacher, if you remember, his brother.
Oh, yeah.
That was going to take them on a rafting trip and then had to bail at the last minute, and he always had Belding cover for him.
But you remember in those days, bad teachers were portrayed as unstable. Like, not unstable.
You couldn't count on them.
Inconsistent. You're right. Yeah, you couldn't count on them. I would say, what was Will Smith's show?
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air?
Yeah, his uncle, Carl. Not Carl.
Yeah. No, wait. Yes.
Yeah, Uncle Carl, yeah.
Carl.
There's so many scenes in that show that I had never experienced anything like they would talk about, and yet it was so relatable, right? Just the emotional rawness of what they were going through.
Yeah. The one that really sticks out when he really takes care of him is when Will Smith's dad comes into town and he promises a bunch of stuff and hangs out with him, and then all of a sudden he bails.
Yep.
And he kind of goes, Will Smith's character can't handle it, and like he's mad, but it's more of that he's upset than he's and he takes care of him there.
Disappointed, and so I would say no. This is a good list, and I'm sure those of you who are listening can come up with other examples, which is great because I think we need that. I think the more we can portray teachers in a positive spotlight, and the more we can portray the plight of teachers and how difficult it is, I think the better that is.
Yeah, so I think if you're listening to this, whether it's in your car or whatever, and you think of a person, shoot us a quick image of them on Instagram, email it to us or whatever, or you see us in person, talk to us. One that just popped up, I typed in bad teachers, and the one that I have to laugh about is Patches a Hula Hand.
Oh, stop it.
And then there's Mr. Strickland from Back to the Future. So
Mr. Strickland.
Let's go ahead and get back to top teachers. Okay, so we talked about who would you relate to when you started out.
Yeah,
So
or who I wanted to be like.
Yeah.
I don't know. Fictional teacher-wise, that's hard to say because, again, I mean, some of these fictional teachers were there when we were starting, and some weren't. I honestly would say I modeled a lot of my teaching from a teacher who's out in California. Wrote a couple books, Golden Apple Teacher Award, and that would be Rafael Escalante, or Esquez. Yes, I'm sorry, I was reading the screen behind you, but he after reading his books, man, I idolized that guy. I tried to fabricate what he had created in 10 plus years of teaching. And that's kind of the trouble of going from 0 to 60 within a matter of one teaching year, right? Is you can't reproduce something of that quality.
Yeah, but that's not what we asked you.
No, you asked me a fictional.
Fictional.
I don't think I don't know if I had a fictional teacher I based my teaching off of.
What did you want to do when you first started teaching?
I wanted to create a project-based real-world educational setting. And that's what Raphael, because he had in his classroom, which was an elementary school, and it was like 90% non-English speaking students. So like first year.
And that fit for where you were at.
It did. Right? And what we were trying to do is the guy literally had it wasn't I want to say a full-fledged token economy, but kids, when they came to school, they literally would earn, quote unquote, a paycheck.
Yep.
They had a banker. They had somebody who was responsible for the accounting, for taxes. They had somebody who was accountable for attendance. Like, it was a self-sustained classroom, is from my understanding. Every student in that classroom either was paired with somebody who had a responsibility or they had a responsibility. At the end of every week, each student would get a pay stub, which would show the balance of their bank account. At any time, they could go to the quote-unquote bank, which was a couple people who knew what the balance of all the kids were. At the end of every month, they would hold an auction for items that were donated to the classroom. So they were talking about like TV stuff. And the kids could use their checking account and balance account to buy things. But it wasn't just that. They literally would put on a Shakespearean play every year. And these are kids who spoke no English coming in. So 3rd, 4th, 5th graders, no English. They would put on a full-fledged Shakespearean play every year. And they would have notable guest stars. Like Ian McClellan was a guest star theirs at one point.
Wow.
And they performed a Shakespearean play for him. But those are the things, like, when I look at what I was really wanting to accomplish as a first-year teacher, I wanted to do. Now, to think that was something that I could do in hindsight with no tools or skills or experience
backing
was pretty naive, right? Like, I can't put that. But you think about like what experience those kids had and the growth they would have had if that could have been the part. Yeah, absolutely. So that's why I kind of went for.
You went from, I mean, your endorsement was in PE. But that's not right. Was it physical education?
It was physical education with a small background in math. Like, so
But yours was different than, I mean, you were very similar to me to where, not that we were both PE because I was social sciences, but your first job was in special ed, right?
Yes, first job was academic special ed, yes.
Yep, yeah. So, same thing. So I remember that. I like how you were talking about that. And I know when I worked at, while I was teaching, I worked part-time at Sylvan out in West Des Moines, and they kind of did a token economy too. After you did so many things, like you earned tokens, and then they had like the bin or the closet that had all the stuff there. So I think that's a great way to do that. For me, like I was social sciences, and then my first job was in behavior for special ed. But I always thought, like, when I realized I wanted to become a teacher, it wasn't like one of these fictional characters like you, right? Mine was, I had multiple teachers in high school that I really enjoyed having their class. I really enjoyed being around them. I still talk to them today. But my goal was to give kids the experience that I had of enjoying the class, enjoying the people around you, enjoying that high school experience. Now, obviously, the learning and all of that falls together, but I think it's that relationship building was like that's why I went into teaching, is because I wanted somebody to enjoy the experience at our school that I had. And now obviously those teachers were gone.
Yeah.
But I know I had teachers where I took a class, not because I cared what the subject was, but it was who was teaching it.
Yeah.
So that was that relationship that I was hoping to build with the kids I taught.
No, that makes sense. And I mean, it's not really different now, but when we were going through the ranks of becoming a teacher, there was a real attendance issue in schools.
Yep.
And, you know, we come from that era where the motto is 90% of any success is showing up. And we were realizing that the majority of our battle as soon-to-be teachers wasn't teaching kids, it was getting them there.
Yeah.
And to do that, like you just said, building that relationship, but then also trying to teach kids that you have to be present or in the building at least, right, to gain something. And I know that's a battle now. I mean, how many times have you had a class or a project or spoken to a teacher in the general education setting that were like, that kid's behind because they missed 4 of the last 5 days, not because they can't. I mean, how often do you hear a teacher say they can't? They don't have the skills to do it. We hear, well, they've been gone for 9 of the last 12 days, right?
It's not about skill. It's about you need to be there. And while you were talking, I had my computer pulled up, and I was trying to remember the quote that I think we both kind of, I would say, modeled our teaching by. I mean, because we build relationships with kids. Is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great quote, and it's Teddy Roosevelt. About, I think I would say, and you can tell me I'm wrong, about how we teach our classes, or we're in our classes. It's about building that relationship with those students, because you're not going to get as much out of them if they don't understand how much you care about them.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but I think a lot of people today, especially in education, confuse the idea that those are synonymous, caring about a kid and then telling them that you care, right? Like,
yeah.
I'm thinking about even myself. Like, somebody goes, hey, I really care about you. I'm going to go, bullshit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just met you. Like, how do you... Yeah.
You do it through actions, not through words.
Yeah, exactly. Actions speak louder than words. And it's funny because that's also the irony with young kids is they do something and then they go, well, I didn't mean to do that. And you go, well, but your actions said you did. And they have that deer in the headlights look like, well, that's not what I just told you. Like, you don't believe me? And it's like, actions do speak. And you're right. I think the idea that kids have to see that actual, and it's more than just showing up to after school activity or practice, right? It's not you standing in the doorway of the gym watching them shoot hoops. That's not going to tell a kid you care about.
No. I will say, though, it's not. There's better things you can do. But I think it does, and kids can tell me I'm wrong, but I do think that does, if they see you there, I think that's a little bit. Now it's more of the making sure, hey, you need to get this done because you need this class because you need to graduate. That stuff like that, I think, is showing it more than, like you said, being at an after school activity.
You're right, and I think where I was going was it is the.
Was I not on the right path?
No. You were. It's the impression that you were. I always call it on top of things, but it's that follow up. So even though a kid may not see you standing in the door watching them shoot hoops, it's the idea that the next day you went, hey, you know what? Like, I was watching you shoot hoops yesterday, and you were like, that's weird. And you go, no. Like, do you mind if I give you a piece of advice? Like when you were shooting, like, I don't know anything about basketball, but when you were shooting, I noticed, like, you kept looking over to your left. Like, is there a reason for that? And then it's just that probing question. And then they realize, like, oh, crap. Like, it's not that he's the weirdo standing in the corner. It's, oh, man, he really does. Like, he kind of wants to help me. Like, there's that kind of equity that you begin to build.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bigger piece. And it's not... and for the longest time, I was a little angry about the trade-off. Like, what do you mean I got to go to a basketball game or a wrestling meet or something else after school? Like, I'm going to go pick my kids up instead. But, like, began to dawn on me, like, I can spend 20 minutes at 3:30 until 4, right?
Yep.
Or half an hour. I could probably stand in the doorway or sit on the bottom bleacher and watch this practice or do something.
Now, I get what you're saying, and I like that. And it's not because, like, I'll try to go, if I can, I'll go to after school activities or games. And it's now the nice thing is I can bring my kids, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that you're there because they may see you there.
They may not either, yeah.
Then they may not, but it's the next day, like you're saying, hey, great job last night. You guys really worked hard. Or you can pinpoint something that they did.
They did specifically.
Because they know that, you really were paying attention.
And then they're going to be more open to you saying, hey, you didn't do very well on your social studies exam, your American history exam yesterday.
Yep.
Or it looks like, hey, you're missing your book report for so-and-so in English. Like, what is it that we can do? Like, can I help you? Like, do I need to Google something? Like, as you throw out ideas, then they're going to be more receptive to that.
Correct, because it's not just in school, it's out of school as well, that you're paying attention to them.
Yeah, and I think that's a great – and it's just like with parents. Like, how many times did you call a parent in that first week of school – not for something negative, but you were like being proactive. You're like, I'm going to intentionally call this parent who I know the last 5 years they've received a negative phone call about their kid first day of school, and I'm just going to do something positive.
Yep.
Like, hey, your kid was on time. I really appreciated them saying please, thank you. Like, it was awesome. I just wanted to let you know. I look forward to talking to you in a few weeks when we follow up about anything else that may come up.
Makes a big difference.
Boom.
And if that first thing you say to them is a positive interaction, right? Then when you call home like, hey, this is what happened today, not a great day, they're going to be more apt to be open and listening to that because they know that you're not just calling because of negative things, that you have that positive part as well.
And I love doing it too because I always loved hearing what was the first response from parents. Like when you said, hey, this is Justin Russell from so-and-so school district. How are you doing today?
Yep.
And a lot of times if you heard the, well, it depends, like what are you going to say next? Like,
what they do now.
You knew that I had to make a note about that parent. Like, this is a parent that I really need to make sure I give some positives, emails, texts, whatever, in the next couple of months because they're going to be the ones that are going to be the most hesitant to positive news.
Yep.
Because they're always going to be waiting for the shoe to drop.
Exactly.
And so I think there's, like I said, I've taken that probably from some of those fictional teachers. But what I've also, as I look at those those fictional teachers we were talking about, they were not, I don't want to say they were battle-hardened, but I don't want to say they were rainbows and sunshines and unicorns either.
Yeah.
Like, they were okay with being, I don't want to say forward either. I guess that would be the lack of better terms. But they were comfortable with being forward with people.
Yeah.
Like,
blunt.
Hey, yeah, blunt, I guess you could say.
Yep.
Look, we love your kid. You love them as a parent. I love them as a teacher. This is what happened today. It's not that they're a bad kid. This is what happened. This is what we expect. Hey, what can we do next time?
100% agree.
And almost every teacher up there was like that.
I will say, okay, so the last thing we're going to do is like, and not to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
Because you're rambling because you've been drinking.
I have been, yes.
So the one is like, where were you at when you started? Where are you at now? Now, I'm going to answer this for both of us because I had a kid talk to me the other day about how, like, so last year they were working on your room, right? Because we were doing some remodeling, and we shared a room, right? And he was like, God, they would get into arguments all the time. Like, they'd argue with each other. I'm like, if you really thought they were, like, really mad at each other, I go, you don't really know us at all. He's like, no, because Mr. Russell would take us out to the South Gym because we'd sometimes change venues, right? Because didn't want to be in there with you. I'm like, dude, if you think that's the reason why he's went to the South Gym, you don't really know us very well. So I'm going to answer for both of us. We are Charlie Day and Ice Cube in fist fight, apparently.
Apparently in some kids' minds.
Because we've known each other since first grade.
Yeah.
And so teaching together in the same room, we could give each other shit all the time.
Yeah.
And if you didn't know us, you could be, man, they really don't like each other.
And even if we were mad at each other, guess what? 24 hours later, it didn't matter.
So it's like, you really don't know us if you really think that we were that mad at each other. But it was just, oh, man.
That is funny.
He said that, it was like last week, I think. I'm like, man, you're just, I guess, maybe it seemed like that.
They're
but
not as perceptive as they think.
No. And most of them know, but some of them don't. Like how close we are, obviously, but it was just kind of funny. So
I would say, let's see here. I told you how I started out. I would say I'm probably close to. I feel like I'm like Mr. Feeney. I mean, if you think about Mr. Feeney, he gave a lot of quote unquote heart-to-heart lectures.
Actually, can you answer this one because you don't teach anymore?
Yes, I can, because
I don't think so.
What do you think as a teacher? Someone who's licensed in a classroom?
Yes.
No, come on, man.
You're like,
oh, you're worse than those surveys we get. Like, do you have a mentor? Do you have somebody you can talk to?
You are Cameron Diaz from Bad Teacher. Is who I think you are. You're Mr. D.
I'm Jack Black. I'm hungover. Do you know what that means?
No, it means I was drunk yesterday.
Like I said, I think I really started out as like a Mr. Miyagi type. Like I said.
Well, that's racist.
Well, you're racist. We're not on video yet. But then I like I said, in the aspect of a lot of probably rambling and lectures and trying to do heart-to-heart stuff. Because as a teacher, I think the hidden evil of what we do is you do want to connect with a kid on that level, right? Like, you want to have that one kid that comes back in 20 years and says, you saved my life. And I think that's the hidden kind of...
Yeah. And what's funny is you don't know that until 20 years later. They don't usually talk to you until
Not that that's what you do it for, but I think, yeah.
No, but it's one of those things that, like, when you have a kid that 5 years after they graduate or whatever, and they actually, like, they say something, you don't realize how much of an impact you made. Until they tell you, and they're not usually going to tell you until they're grown up a little bit more and realize what you did for them.
Yeah, it's not easy to do.
So Mr. Miyagi was your starting?
No, he was probably my starting, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then at the end of your career?
Probably Mr. Affini.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't a Mrs. Frizzle.
You weren't Miss Frizzle?
I didn't have a magic school bus to and you know what? Chris, you know me better than most people or most anybody, and I don't know if you agree to this, but I think I devolved almost to a Mr. D-like probably my last 3 or 4 months of teaching. I was getting pretty close. And for you administrators out there that had me, I deeply apologize. And I know I apologize to those AEA people that were my support staff already multiple times. But it got bad. And but I do appreciate the flexibility and understanding that a lot of people around me had, because it was not good.
Yeah, you were checked out a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and say, like, when I started, I was debating between, like, Jaime Escalante and Sean McGuire, Robin Williams from Good Will Hunting. And since I didn't really do math, but, like, I think that was the biggest thing is, like, that relationship, trying to save every kid and, like, pouring yourself into them and trying to, like, fix everything.
Yeah.
Now, with Robin Williams or Sean McGuire in Good Will Hunting, he had a lot of that very similar. Like, he went through some rough stuff, and that was some parts. I think it was tough for me because yes, I went to the same school I teach at, but like I did not have to go through the same things a lot of the kids that I teach went through. So as much as you try to understand and empathize, it's hard when you don't go through it, but you do the best you can. So that's kind of where I was at, was Sean McGuire, Good Will Hunting, is when I started out at. Now, man, where am I at now? I think I bounced back. There was a little while where I think I was like Mr. D of just like you, and probably the end of last year, like when you were. I think there were things that, like, for me, I'm like, you know what, whatever.
I think
but I think there's a cycle.
I do too. I think every teacher can say that, and
so I think now I'm gonna go ahead and say Feeney, and I'm stealing your, like, because now Jesus, I'm like the old veteran now. Which is crazy to think, but...
Well, I feel like Ice Cube some days when he was trying to do the TV with technology, like, I just...
We don't have axes at school, though, so we can't do that.
That's a true point, but you know how it is, like, technology has been such a huge part of teaching now, and I get lost sometimes, like, especially when you're trying to connect to Apple TV for the 5th time and it's disconnected, and you're like, I have this really great clip, guys, I swear. Right? Like,
But I think I think that's pretty good. Man, we've done an hour.
It always flies by, buddy.
It really does. We'll do this again. We'll figure out our next topic next time. But anything else you wanna say? We'll be in. It'll be more consistent.
Yeah,
yeah. I know.
I think Chris and I are talking about or trying to figure out probably a kind of like a weekly thing or every other week thing. Like
yeah,
exact day,
absolutely.
We'll try to get something out better.
And we'll get it figured out. But other than that, you got anything?
I'm good.
Hey, happy St. Patty's Day. If you're listening to it, I'm going to try to upload it. I take that back. Not happy St. Patty's Day because it'll be probably tomorrow when I load this up. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you don't have a headache. And
fast forward always.
Yeah, we'll be in touch in about a week or so. So
yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Yeah.